What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about hitches, and more specifically, the Andersen hitch, so stay tuned. So the reason that we decided to do this video is there's a lot of opinions about the Andersen hitch online when you're doing your research, when you're looking for a fifth wheel hitch. I know we did a tremendous amount of research, and the majority of the reviews about the Andersen hitch are good, but there are a lot of people that have an opinion about the Andersen hitch that have never actually used the hitch. So that's just kind of the reason we wanted to make this video. We've owned the Andersen hitch for 3 years. We've towed our fifth wheel all across the country with it, multiple times. 3 years, we've towed over 40,000 miles using the Andersen hitch. We've had no issues with it. It's been fantastic. If you're looking for a hitch, if you found this video because you're doing research on trying to figure out what fifth wheel hitch you want to use and you're considering the Andersen hitch, maybe this will help you out. So why did we choose the Andersen hitch? The first thing that kind of attracted me to the Andersen hitch was the fact that it's light enough that one person can handle it. You can pull it out of the bed of your truck if you need to. At the time when we bought our fifth wheel, we were still living locally. We weren't traveling full time, so we would stay parked for 2-3 weeks, a month at a time, and I really liked being able to have that hitch out of the bed very easily. Just remove it. I mean, it's small enough to where you could actually remove it, and if you have any type of, if your basement storage is big enough, it may even fit in there. I just like the fact that I could remove it. I could turn over our gooseneck ball and have the bed available if I needed to haul something in the bed of the truck. So that was one big factor. The second factor, and I didn't realize how valuable this would be at the time, but it is how easy the Andersen hitch is to hook up to your fifth wheel. There is a little bit of setup when you first buy the hitch. You have to put the coupling on the fifth wheel, but once that's set up, I mean, hooking up your fifth wheel is as easy, actually probably easier than hooking up just a standard bumper pull trailer. You just raise the front of your fifth wheel up, back under it, drop the fifth wheel down on top of the ball. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that. What we have realized after having it for so long and being in so many different campgrounds and having backed in so many different places and being in different situations, different inclines, you know, in Florida everything's pretty flat, so it wasn't really a big deal. But as we've been traveling and we get out to where it's a little more hilly and the campgrounds can have some incline on the sites, there's been a lot of places that we have backed in and the truck was on such an incline or on an angle that it would have made having, if we would have had a standard fifth wheel hitch, it would have been a lot more difficult. Not impossible, but definitely not as easy as just raising the trailer up off the ball and pulling out. It definitely has made hooking up and unhooking a lot faster. It saves time. If you're looking for hitches and you research the Andersen hitch, you're going to see pictures. One particular picture where the hitch is crumpled up, and you know, there's no context surrounding that picture. I've seen so many different stories that people have shared. This one particular picture of the Andersen hitch is totally crushed. Some people say it was involved in an accident. Some people say no, there wasn't an accident. It was just an emergency stop situation and the hitch just folded up. I can tell you that after traveling all over the country using this hitch, we've been on some of the absolute worst roads you could possibly imagine. We've been on you know, hit bumps in the road that I thought was going to rip the hitch out of the bed. I mean, it was that dramatic. Bad enough to where we would pull over and make sure that everything was okay on the trailer because the bump was so bad and so vicious. But the hitch has never had a bit of issue. Now I do inspect it often. I'm always looking at the welds. I'm trying to make sure that I don't see any hairline cracks starting to form. I'm always checking the coupling, make sure the coupling isn't moving or twisting. So, you know, I think if you're aware and you just pay attention and do your inspections, and that's something you're going to have to do with any fifth wheel hitch. You want to make sure that everything's tight and everything's the way it's supposed to be. You know, the campground that we're at now, we had a couple that came in, and their tailgate was totally destroyed because their fifth wheel hitch, the jaws came unlocked while they were traveling. They'd been on the road for a couple hours, and when they went to take off, the jaws came unlocked. Now, you know, I don't know the details around that, but it does happen. So accidents can happen no matter what kind of hitch you're using. So I just feel like the Andersen hitch has worked great for us. We've had no issues. There's been times where I've had to get on the brakes hard to get stopped, and you know, there's no sign of any problems whatsoever with this hitch. So if you're thinking about the Andersen hitch, you know, don't be scared, and talk to people that have actually used it. And I think what you're going to find is an overwhelming majority of us have had no problems at all and really love it. So the specs on our fifth wheel is 34 feet long and comes in at just under 10,000 pounds. If all the tanks were full, we'd probably be a little over that. But so we're right at 10,000 pounds, give or take, depending on how much water we have in our tanks. So one problem that seems to be pretty common with people that do have a complaint about the Andersen hitch is the hitch twisting in the bed. So the way the Andersen hitch works, it sits down over your gooseneck ball, you put the pin through it, and then you tighten down the top nut that basically secures the hitch to the ball, and then you have two jam nuts that you tighten up that keeps the sleeve from sliding up and down. If you have a bed liner or a bed mat, like we do, we have a bed mat in our truck. If you don't torque that top nut down enough, then you could have an issue where that hitch could twist. Once you set the weight of your trailer down on it, it could maybe be just loose enough on the ball to where you could get a little twisting. So the way you're going to avoid that, Andersen recommends torquing your top nut down to 70 foot-pounds of torque, set the weight of your trailer down on the ball, and then re-torque it again to 70 pounds, and then tighten your jam nuts, torque them to 60 pounds, and you're going to be good to go. Another thing you're going to be careful of with the Andersen hitch is when you put the coupler on the fifth wheel, you're going to want to make sure that you follow the instructions from Andersen. And if you're having your dealership install that when you pick your fifth wheel up, even if they say they're familiar with how to put the Andersen hitch coupling on, you're going to want to make sure to give them those instructions and make sure they do not over tighten the two through bolts that go through that hold the coupling onto the pin of the pin box. That happened with our dealership. They said they have installed many of the Andersen hitch couplings, no problem. They put it on and they over tightened it, and they cracked the red plastic funnel that goes over it. Doesn't hurt anything structurally. That funnel is just to help funnel the if you're not lined up exactly right, it helps kind of line your trailer up to get it over the top of the ball. But Andersen was good enough to send me a new red funnel piece that we put on, and had no issue. So if you over torque those, it's going to crack. Then you also have 4 Allen bolts that go up that actually that's what actually tightens that coupler up so that it stays tight on the pin. You're going to want to make sure that they're using a torque wrench and they torque those down to the proper specs as well. Another question a lot of people ask is, will that hitch work, will the Andersen hitch work in a short bed truck? Our 2018 Ram 2500 is the short bed, and there's no issues with clearance. You can see that we have on ours, we have the coupling facing to the front, so that there's plenty of clearance inside the bed. Andersen sends measurements with the hitch, so if you use their measurements, they have you measure from the ball to the bed rails, from the ball to the tailgate. There's a whole setup procedure that they will give you to determine whether that coupling needs to face forward like we have ours, or if it needs to be rotated 180 degrees to face backwards. Depending on how much clearance you have on your bed rails to the cab, that's what's going to determine whether that coupling faces forward or faces to the rear. There's no guesswork to it. I mean, they send you the measurements, so if you just follow the instructions, you'll have no problems making sure that everything is set up correctly. The hitch ball itself has 3 height positions on it. We run ours in the middle, and that provides the perfect amount of clearance for our trailer. So that's pretty much it. I mean, I think those are kind of the main points that we see discussed a lot online when people are asking about fifth wheel hitches, and if anybody uses the Andersen hitch, make sure that you're getting your information from a reputable source, from somebody that's actually used the hitch, and not just from, you know, people online that are passing these pictures around of hitches that have failed with no context, and they don't know the story. You know, any hitch can fail. I mean, if you get in a bad enough accident, any hitch is going to fail, or has the potential to fail. The goal obviously is to not get in a bad accident, but you know, it's not a guarantee that just because you have a standard fifth wheel hitch or a slider hitch, that it's not going to have a problem if you get into an emergency situation and you have to run off the road, or you know, worst case scenario, you get in an accident. Bottom line is we absolutely love the Andersen hitch. It's given us 0 issues. We see a lot of them at the different campgrounds that we travel to. We see a tremendous amount of fifth wheels that are pulling with the Andersen hitch. So that's our thoughts on it. That is a 3-year, 40,000 mile review on the Andersen hitch. You know, we did a video early on, really early on, when we first got it, and kind of went through the whole setup and some of the reasons that we chose the Andersen hitch, but wanted to make an updated video after 3 years and just so many miles. I feel like we have a really good grasp on whether or not this hitch is capable of doing the job, and it absolutely is. So if you guys have any questions regarding the Andersen hitch or the setup, definitely leave them in the comments below. We answer, you know, any questions. We try to respond to all the comments. So I hope you guys found this helpful. Until next time, we'll catch you guys down the road.